I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. This is the Thursday, November 3rd meeting of the City Council, the Library Board, the Housing Authority Board, and the City Council representing the Redevelopment Successor Agency. Here we have Iris, would you lead us in the flag salute, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hobart.
Here.
Councilmember Kite.
Here.
Councilmember Smotrich. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Townsend.
Here.
And Mayor Weil.
Here. The first item on the agenda this morning is a presentation regarding the Cool Planet Award, and that's going to be handled by Britt Wilson, Management Analyst.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and City Council. On October 25th, the City of Rancho Mirage and the City Council was awarded the 2016 Cool Planet Award in the Government and Institutional Small Sector category. This award was given at the Huntington Memorial Gardens and Library in San Marino, and it was in recognition of the City Council's leadership in energy efficiency projects conducted in the city. The Cool Planet Award recognizes Southern California Edison business customers that demonstrate exemplary leadership in energy and carbon management. So that's why we received the award. We were given this for various energy efficiency projects we have done over the last 3 years. And that would include retrofitting numerous lights throughout city facilities, installing new energy efficient street lights, variable speed pool pumps at all our housing authority properties, and even our parks like the Cancer Survivors Park. We have a pool pump there and we changed that out too, and other energy efficiency measures. All told, those measures allowed us to save 200,000 kilowatt hours of energy during the last 3 years through these projects. I have a very short presentation there. Oops, maybe back one slide. There we go. So it was October 25th. Next slide. That's me accepting on behalf of the City Council and the city. Next slide, and there we all are. Our Edison rep is the woman, the second one on the right, and the last slide. And that's a close-up of the award. And with that, I would like to ask the mayor to please come down and accept this award on behalf of the City Council and all the great energy efficiency projects we've done. And the award reads, Southern California Edison and the Climate Registry honors City of Rancho Mirage for its outstanding environmental leadership in energy and carbon management, Cool Planet Award 2016. So, thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Britt. It's an honor to accept this on behalf of the entire city. Earlier this week, there was an energy seminar at the Agua Caliente Casino that the city was the host of, one of the hosts, and it was very rewarding to talk about all of the things that we have done at the city from the standpoint of energy efficiency, sustainability, the solar projects that we have done, how we have retrofitted the various areas of our city. And I must tell you, it was well received, and I think we set an example for many other cities. So, as I say, on behalf of the city, I'm very proud to accept this award. Thank you very much.
Excuse me for interrupting the meeting, but I just came in, and I'm this local astronomer. Are you talking about the telescope?
Have a seat in the front if you don't mind. Thank you, John. Right up front.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Take your time. We haven't gotten to that portion of the agenda. At this time, however, I will ask for any non-agenda public comments. There has been none requested. Yes, sir. Please come up and give your identification, your name, and place of residence.
My name is Bill Kingston. I manage Rancho Mirage Country Club Homeowners Association, and I'm here today to give you a brief update on the status of our country club and golf course area and tell you of the good news that we hope to share with everybody. Much has been reported since the June 2015 purchase of the Rancho Mirage Country Club and closing of the golf course and all facilities. We come today to bring the city up to date on events that we hope and expect will begin the resolution of the situation. Over the past year, our homeowners experienced 7 stages of loss of a loved one, that being the green golf course we knew and loved. Today, we believe reality has set in, and with much hard work and dedication by our board of directors and association, settlement agreement with the country club ownership, Oasis Ranch LLC, was reached in late August, and presently the HOA and Oasis Ranch are beginning the task of working together for what we believe is to be the best for all parties. The association and Oasis Ranch are discussing and working together to bring new life into our community by beginning the entitlement process for what we hope will be a first-class destination hotel, perhaps limited construction of new housing development, and one other area presently owned by Oasis Ranch. During this process, the association is leasing the 90 acres of the former golf course and will be watering, mowing, tree trimming, and in general maintaining it like a park-like green space. And Oasis Ranch is cooperating and contributing in this effort. Upon completion of the entitlement process with the city, Oasis Ranch will turn over all owned property for this development and will deed what was formerly the golf course over to the homeowners. During this entitlement process, our homeowners will have the opportunity to study, discuss, and determine just what is to become of what was the golf course. Will a golf course reappear in its former glory? Will a more up-to-date course take its place to meet the changing demands of today's golfers? Or will the land take another direction in the form of a park-like setting and/or open green space? Those decisions will be investigated and decided by the 266 homeowners over the next months. The homeowners, with the cooperation of Oasis Ranch ownership, will decide its own future and what is best for the community. The association and homeowners are hopeful that by working together, our community will come together and thrive again, meeting the challenges now present in all of our area's gated communities. Much has been said over the last few months of the association and homeowners how appreciative they are of the efforts of the city in monitoring conditions and situation at Rancho Mirage Country Club. Certainly, that cannot be understated. Today, we are hopeful and believe that there are new and positive times ahead for our community, and we thank you for this time. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Well, that's certainly good news, Bill. We, on the City Council, of course, are very much pleased that you're arriving at some sort of a settlement, and of course, we'll look forward to you working with our planning department on something that will be suitable for the city as well as the homeowners.
We know it's a long haul, but we look forward to working with you as well.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there any questions that anybody has while Bill is present?
Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly. Are there any other questions that anybody might have on that are items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to City Council Board comments, and we'll start with Richard.
Thank you, Mayor. And you can tell the season is coming. As the weekends come by, we see more and more events going on. And today I'm just going to talk about 2 events that are always really exciting for the city. The first one is this Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and it's the 16th annual Rancho Mirage Art Affair at the Rancho Mirage Community Park. Art Affair is open to the public and is one of the city's signature events. This spectacular two-day event features over 100 award-winning artists showcasing paintings, sculptures, ceramics, jewelry, and other artistic originals. Food and beverages will be available for purchase from several Rancho Mirage residents comprising of Babes, Wally's, and Brandini Toffee, with 50% of the sales proceeds being donated to the Rancho Mirage Rotary Club. Teen sensation saxophonist Chase Huna will be performing from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, entertaining the patrons with his smooth jazz sounds. Due to some remodeling at the amphitheater, the City of Rancho Mirage is hosting a special free concert. Remember, that's free concert at the Agua Caliente Casino in the show. It's going to be hosting this event, a special concert presented by featuring the Urban Jazz Coalition, and this will begin at 8 o'clock on Saturday evening. Tickets are on a first-come basis. The seats will actually, doors will open at 7 p.m. Seating will be first come, and it really should be a great event. This is a group that was originally planned to be at the amphitheater, and they've decided to do this concert, and it's really great because it's free to everybody. So get there early. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people there, and you'll really enjoy yourself. Another event I want to just briefly mention on is also on Saturday, and this is an event being provided at the Children's Discovery Museum, and it's the second annual Touch a Truck event. This actually creates an interactive, hands-on learning experience for children and families. We're going to have big rigs there, emergency vehicles, and many will be available to get in, to sit in there, talk to the people who drive the trucks. And last year was a tremendous success. This year we're even having more trucks arrive, and for more of the children be able to take a good look at all these trucks that they see go by them all the time. Now they're up close on them. The event begins at 10 a.m. on Saturday, November 5th, and ends at 2 p.m. In addition to the trucks, they're going to have games, music, and for the mayor, they're going to have pony rides, and food and entertainment will also be available. So remember, that's 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. On your way to the art affair, stop by the Children's Museum and have a great time. And one last thing that I couldn't pass up talking about, Mayor, is the Rattlers. The Rancho Mirage High School Rattlers last week won 2 games, or last 2 weeks they won 2 games. They defeated Yucca Valley 37-14 and Desert Mirage in a squeaker 52-8. The Rattlers are now 4-0 in the De Anza League, with a final league game coming up tomorrow night at Desert Hot Springs. CIF playoffs will begin the following Friday, and if you haven't seen the Rattlers play, here's an opportunity to see them locally at their own field, and they'll be playing another team from out of the area in the first round of CIF playoffs. So make sure you go there, support the Rattlers, and go Rattlers.
Richard's the number one. Now, Richard, also I have read that the ladies volleyball team has also done extremely well, and
they were actually first in the division. So great. It's amazing, the kids that are there and the sports ability that they have. It's just not football, it's softball, it's volleyball. Really committed to the school and the program.
Very exciting. Great for the city of Rancho Mirage. Dana? Any? No. Iris?
Yes. Actually, today I have 2 show and tell items. The first is on the serious side, and the second is strictly for fun. Just in case you might have forgotten, Our country has a very important holiday coming up on next Friday, November 11th, and that is Veterans Day. If you look up at our screens, I would like to share with you some photos of a very special event in which I was not only privileged to be a participant, but I was also able to help plan. The event took place a few weeks ago at the Palm Springs Air Museum and honored 3 of our precious veterans who served during World War II in and around the country of France. The photos show the awarding of the French Legion of Honor Medal. And keep in mind, this is the highest military medal awarded by the French government, and it was presented by the French Consul General, Christophe Lemon. The first photo on the screen shows the group of all the awardees that attended along with the French Consul and one of the other representatives who was doing some presenting. So moving on to this gentleman, this is First Lieutenant Raymond Casey Hassey. He entered the Army Air Corps and completed 55 combat missions, including support for D-Day and their landings, after his extensive training in the field of gunnery, also as a bombardier and as a navigator. He is now a resident of Cathedral City. Next on this screen is Private First Class Martin Kurtz. Next. Who served in the Army, where he was wounded once in France, twice in Germany, and was awarded many medals, including the Bronze Star and 3 Purple Hearts. Our third veteran is Francis Russ Snell, who served in the Army in the Parachute Infantry Regiment. On D-Day, he helped secure Normandy, went on to jump into Holland, and participated in the stand during the Battle of the Bulge. He was wounded in France, Holland, and Germany, and was also awarded many medals, including 3 Purple Hearts, and he now lives in Desert Hot Springs. It is very difficult to see, but he is holding his last remaining piece of his parachute. It's the green piece of material hanging down from his hand. Through the years, he has given away many pieces of his parachute to special people in his life, but needless to say, he will always hold on to this very last piece. So just as a side note, these gentlemen are all now in their 90s. How fortunate we are that we can still recognize them and these great honors. But what is even more remarkable about so many of our military members is that so often, if they can recover sufficiently after an injury, they are back on the battlefield as soon as possible with renewed determination. So, on this coming Veterans Day, please take a few moments to honor our military men, women, and canine members, and remember the sacrifices they have made and the courage it takes to defend the freedoms of our country. I am personally awed by the enormity of their dedication and selflessness. They are ordinary people coming from all walks of life, but they all share the fundamental qualities of being able to respond in extraordinary ways when duty calls. Some we can honor in person, and some only in spirit. But regardless, they are all heroes, and nothing can ever fill the hole left by a fallen soldier or comfort the ones they have left behind. So whether we remember the soldiers who served at Valley Forge, Korea, France, Vietnam, or Afghanistan, please take time to remember and honor them all. No one deserves it more. And just as a friendly reminder, for Veterans Day, please feel the patriotism, and if you have a flag, please display it proudly, and always remember that freedom is never free. Thank you. And now to something a little bit more fun. We have an incredible city council, but we also have an incredible staff. And when it comes to work, we are very serious about our work. And when it comes to play, we're very serious about our play. So, if we can show a couple of slides. This is from our Halloween celebration last week. And I know it's hard to see everyone, and most of these people you never see because they're in their offices or they're out on the road somewhere. But there's a gentleman on the bottom dressed in a ice hockey uniform. And if you don't recognize him, he's sitting down here at the end of our dais with a blue tie. And that's Mark Zambito, our Director of Public Works. And next to him is a real cutie, and you certainly would not recognize her. You never see her look like this, and that is Sandra Johnson, a very, very important member of our code enforcement.
How delicate she looks.
I think that she got the biggest hand of all when she walked into the room. And then, of course, on the lower right-hand side, you have all the gals who are in our front office. And you probably wouldn't recognize them, but they're there to serve you, and here they are on a fun day. So if we can have the next slide. That's it? Okay. Well, there's a few more, but I guess they didn't come through from my iPad. There is one gentleman, though, that we have to point out because he always dresses elegantly, no matter what, and he's on the upper left-hand side with his Tommy gun and his mustache and his cigarette, and that's our city manager, Randy Binder. So, it was a fun day for all. It was a fun day for all, and as I say, we take our work seriously, but we also take our fun seriously. So,
Before you hang up, would you tell me who's the blonde little Bo Peep on the left there, lower left?
that is Sandra Johnson.
Oh, could have fooled me.
Yeah. I think she got a prize also for the one coming in the most camouflage decor.
And she, if I can just
Go ahead.
add to that, and she played the role well, and she was Dorothy. That is Dorothy.
Dorothy and her with her little basket and Toto inside.
I thought it was Mark Zambito.
Anyway, so that's what we were up to that day, and it's always a pleasure to bring you some of these cute pictures and fun things that we do at our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris. Yes, it's a great city. We work hard, but you can't lose your sense of humor. Charlie? All right, thank you. I would now like to have a motion to approve the minutes of October 30th. Excuse me, October 20th.
Motion made.
Second? Second. There's a second. Please vote. And the motion is approved 5-0. We will now have the consent calendar presented by Randy Binder, our city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good afternoon. Your consent calendar today has 5 items. Number 1 is to waive full reading of the ordinances that are introduced or adopted pursuant to today's calendar. Item number 2 on consent is appointment of Council Member Charles Townsend to serve as the city's delegate on the Southern California Association of Governments SCAG board. That is actually Mayor Pro Tem Townsend. And Councilwoman Iris Smotrich is our alternate on SCAG. Item number 3 on your consent calendar is appointment of Del Smith to serve on the Community Emergency Preparedness Commission. This is again Mayor Pro Tem Townsend's nomination to fill a vacancy on the Emergency Preparedness Commission. Item number 4 on consent is an amendment to the Verlaine Improvement Contract extension, which would give the developer an extension until October 15th, 2017 to finish the public improvements for Track 36623 in the Tamarisk neighborhood of Rancho Mirage. And item number 5 on consent are demands. Checks issued, and we're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Could we pull 4, please?
Item 4 has been pulled. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 5.
So moved.
Okay, sorry. Were there any public comments on any of the consent items? Seeing none, I will then call for the motion to approve items, to vote on items 1, 2, 3, and 5.
Move approval.
Second.
Please vote.
Want to do by show of hands, Mayor?
Let's do it. Shall we do it verbally? Okay. Let's show of hands. All those in favor?
Motion
None
passes
against?
5-0.
Motion carries 5-0. We'll now go back to the pulled item number 4, which is the approved First Amendment to subdivision to extend track map 36623. Dana?
Yeah, Randy, can somebody tell us, are any of the following completed? The streets, curbs, gutters, water, and sewer. I mean, assuming that the streets are done, because I've driven through there. But how about any of the other things? What is done and what is left to be done for another year?
Good question. Can we have our city engineer, Bill Enos? I think he's prepared to address those questions.
Yes, thank you, Randy. Yes, basically the streets, water and sewer, storm drains, all that is constructed. What has not been finished on the project, and they've asked for this extension, is for them to, they're in a process. 5 homes have been constructed, 5 are under construction. There are approximately 7 lots vacant still, 17 lots total. And so while they're building these homes and continue building homes, they're asking to delay they've paved the streets with a base course. They usually wait to do the final cap until most of the homes are built, because when they bring in the materials, they damage the street, makes the street look a well-worn street, and they just assume it looks like a brand new street when they're done. So they typically delay the final paving and raising the vaults till the very end, and that's why they're asking for the delay.
Well, I think there are some people living in some of those homes.
That's correct. 5 homes are finished.
And so I gather that the sewers are in as far as those homes are concerned.
Yes, sir. The water, sewer, they're in and functioning. That's correct.
Okay. Okay, that's the only question I've had. Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote. And item 4 in the consent item agenda is approved. I am going to, with the council's permission, move item number 11 prior to number 6. And item number 11 is the award of contract for the Library Observatory project, and that is being handled by Mark Sambito, our Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. It's my pleasure to bring to you today a request from staff for the award of the contract for the construction of the Rancho Mirage Library Observatory project to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder, C West Enterprises, in the amount of $2,989,500, and to authorize an additional $153,000 for construction surveying, materials testing, required special inspections, and additional design services. Before I get too far into the details of the staff report, I'd like to give council and the audience an opportunity to be introduced to the project as we have it. So Josh, will you please put the slides up? What you're looking at here on your screen is a rendering from the architect on what we expect that you would see when you pulled into the library parking lot. On the left would be the large dome structure that would house the research level telescope and an office building, or an office space, I'm sorry, for a personnel staff. And on the right would be the entry into the complex, which includes a large viewing deck, if you would. Next slide. What we're looking at here is from above. On the left, you see the large dome. That is where the telescope will be housed. Just to the right of that is the office that we discussed. And then in the center, we have a large deck with 4 locations for amateur astronomers to set up their equipment. We'll have electrical outlets and give them the opportunity to use their equipment in a manner in conjunction with the large research level telescope. And then on the right again is the restrooms and entry area. Next slide. This is what it would look like from either side. Again, on the top, as if you pulled into the parking lot. This is a side view. It will have the checkerboard pattern that you see is basically a representation of the material that's on the outside of the library currently, and it's going to replicate that. So we want to tie the new structure into the existing library. So it looks like they're still partner hand in hand. And then on the back, we had the just the back view of it from the channel side, which wouldn't be seen very much. And then, of course, the next slide shows us the actual dome that Public Works has gone ahead and had produced for this project. And what you're looking at is a series of slides that shows the Rancho Mirage Dome actually opening up. So on the upper left, it's just starting to open, and as you go through the series on the bottom right, the dome is fully open. And that's how it will operate when we are in fact using the dome. And the last slide that I have here is, or the next to last, I'm sorry, is a replication of what it would look like when it's on the building. And the next slide. This is the research level telescope that we purchased called a plane wave telescope. And that's the equipment that we will have, the high-tech machinery that we will have inside the observatory that will do all the magic for us. So I wanted to share that with you before I got into the details. Thank you, Josh. In September of 2014, the City Council authorized staff to proceed forward with the design and construction of the observatory project. Charlie Martin of Narkweather Architects, along with his design team, was selected to do the plans and move this into design. The project design was presented to the Architectural Review Board on several occasions, both June of 2015 and December of 2015, both meetings resulting in very positive feedback from that group. In order to ensure that the best contractor was involved in the project, being that it's so unique, round building, domes, high-tech machinery, we really wanted to make sure at Public Works that we were doing the right thing for the right reason. So we wanted to bring in only the best that we could. So what we did is we went out and we actually pre-qualified any of the contractors who are hoping to bid on the project. And with the oversight of our council and, of course, the subcommittee for the observatory, we did just that. And Public Works received only 5 submittals for contractors hoping to do the construction, and only one of those 5 actually met the stringent criteria that we had laid out in order to be qualified to bid on our project, and that was CWest. So they were found to be the one and only qualified bidder. At which point we went and put the project out to bid once Narkweather had completed the design drawings, and we received the bid. Again, it was $2,989,500, and that came from CWest. We confirmed, of course, that they have an active license and they're in good standing with the state. The observatory subcommittee, represented by Mayor Pro Tem Townsend and Councilmember Hobart met with staff on October 25th of this year, took a look at the design, staff's recommendation, and the cost that we received, and recommended that we move it forward to council for their consideration. In an effort to compress the construction schedule, because we're so excited for this really unique project, Public Works has already enlisted both the manufacturer, Ash Dome, and PlaneWave for the telescope and dome construction. Both of those are either well done or absolutely completed and ready for installation. So we've taken the longest of the lead items out of the construction schedule. So we have very high hopes that we will be able to keep this compressed to a very, very reasonable time frame. The funding for the project is coming from some ROPS or redevelopment funds, as well as some undesignated fund balances. Throughout the planning and design phases, the Observatory Subcommittee provided direction to each stage of the process. So we made sure we kept them all very much involved. And we very much want to thank the guidance and oversight of Mayor Pro Tem Townsend and Councilmember Hobart for all of their direction in getting this project to this point. If approved by council, the work would commence as early as the 1st of December, first part of December, probably the first week. And we expect that construction would be completed in early summer of 2017. So we're looking at approximately a 6 to 9 month time frame to get this completed. That concludes my report. I'm available for questions. In addition, the contractor, the architect, and several other notable individuals are in the audience this afternoon and are available to speak on behalf of the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. You picked up the ball on this, and Randy Villegas from your office was instrumental in moving the project to this point for council consideration, so thank you for that. Looking back at my notes, Mayor Emeritus, is that his title now?
That is it.
Mayor Emeritus Dana Hobart and I visited Mount Palomar back in October of 2013 after the idea of an observatory was brought up at a tourism advisory committee meeting at the Westin Mission Hills sometime before that. Don't remember who it is, but you probably remember.
It was Marilyn Bauer. Right.
Marilyn
I had
Bauer.
asked a question, it was the end of the program, and I had asked a question of the panel, is there anybody in this room that can think of something that we should have in Rancho Mirage that we don't have?
Marilyn.
And behind me was a voice that I recognized. She wasn't part of the panel. And she said, an observatory. And so I spent a year thinking about that, not forgetting that, and then talked to you about it, and we started moving forward.
So the two of us drove up, he drove, and I navigated. Actually, I just held on. We got lost a few times based on my navigation.
That's because you navigated.
That's my degree in geography, right? Big help. And we met with Dan McKenna, who was recently promoted to scientist at Mount Palomar. At the time, he was superintendent. Now he's a scientist, so he probably gets to do all the great work without the HR and everything else that goes along with it. So within, Dana, would you say within 5 minutes of explaining where we were at, showing him a Google Earth photograph, he came up with the specification for this 27-inch telescope. Said that's the one you probably ought to use.
I think at that time he thought we were blowing smoke.
Yes.
But he did suggest that there was really only one telescope for us to consider, that nobody would ever, now or in the future, ridicule us for having something less than a superior tool. And we'll always thank you for that, Dan. We're going to hear from you in a moment. But Dan was very encouraging to us. Notwithstanding, I think that he just thought we were there to get a good insight look of the Mount Palomar telescope, which we did. Thank you for that, too.
That's right. He told us how people come up there and ask for these VIP tours, saying that they have plans for a telescope, but he never hears from them again.
Right.
So he wasn't sure if we were serious or not. And neither were we. We were collecting information at the time.
That was the beginning of our looking at it.
Right, exactly. So that was about 3 years ago that we met with Dan McKenna, and we have had, I believe, about 16 subcommittee meetings with Charlie and Dana and myself and various staff members and other people on our team.
Charlie Martin
Leading up to it. And the field trip group included Charlie Martin, who's the architect on the project, who is very thorough and has made sure that he'll speak in a minute about all the details of the project, because how often does any of us build an observatory in our career in the public sector? Said that about the amphitheater and the dog park, and now we're talking about the observatory. So we needed to make sure that it was done right. So Charlie worked very closely with us to do that, as well as Curtis Goring, who is a astronomy professor at COD and a teacher at Palm Springs High School, and he came on the bus tours with us as well. We visited Mount Palomar and Mount San Jacinto College, and one other one that Charlie, I think, will be talking about.
Griffith Park.
Griffith Park, right, of course. That was our first trip. So we collected all of this information, and the City Council approved the purchase of the telescope and the ash dome that Mark had mentioned, which are the long lead time. And so we're just happy to be able to bring this to you today. And if you can indulge us, I would like Dan McKenna to come and speak a little bit about his excitement for this project and our plans for the future. Skyward.
Yes, please.
Please.
Well, hi there, everybody. This certainly is a momentous occasion. Greetings from Palomar Observatory. You know, a lot of people ask, well, what do you exactly do up there? And we really, if you break it down, we do two things. We harvest starlight and we convert it into knowledge. And then the most important part is we make more astronomers, because you have to continue to make astronomers or you'll run out of them. And we don't want to do that. So when I was approached by your fair city in terms of building an observatory, I wasn't that skeptical of you. But these are big plans. These are bold, visionary things that we believe have an extraordinary impact on especially the upcoming generations of what we hope to be very productive and contribute to the unique contributions that the American astronomical community has played in the development expansion of the knowledge of the universe. So when this occurred, I was asked to recommend a telescope, and I kind of always hesitate, but gosh, I just love looking at it. It's such a beautiful telescope. This company called PlaneWave also had a very bold vision that they could build a telescope with unsurpassed performance, extremely cost effective. And if I can have the next slide. The thought that a public library would have an instrument like this was just, it was astounding to me. And so I'm wondering right now about the validity of my first line, a first for a public library. And of course I asked a telescope manufacturer, has he heard of anything like this? And then I went around the world, well, from my desk, and searched to find out who else had a facility that has a scientific grade instrument that you can check out from the library. So with the challenges of the information technology, competing for the attention with things like what we're used to from our generation, in other words, the library equivalent, there's been this whole search for identification of how can libraries really keep the edge on information transfer. So it's clear that the biggest book that exists is the universe itself. And the universe changes moment by moment. It's not static, it's not fixed. So modern astronomy these days has a section called transient astronomy, where instead of looking at a patch of sky 1 year and a few years later we'll come back and look at it again, we look at it every 20 seconds. And so as a result, we see things that we've never been able to see before. And this is because of the modern technology, the convergence of computational efficiency, sensitivity of imagers, and the availability of this equipment at just, bargain prices compared to what it would take 30 years ago to build a telescope with this kind of performance. So I'm really quite excited about the Check Out the Universe from the Rancho Mirage Library, because I think, we may be the first, and I hope I'm right on that. So next slide.
Hold on a second, Dan. To me, when you say check out, that means that you can take it home for a few weeks when you use that in terms of relation to the library.
And that is the truth, because what you'll be able to do is operate the telescope from your home.
Very nice. And one other item, I wanted to make sure that we also thanked David Bryant, our library director. He's part of the group as well. Thank you, David.
So I want to reinforce that this is an industrial grade telescope. This is not something that you would just sort of take out and use and worry about it. This is a machine that was designed for the rapid harvest of starlight. In other words, its motion control systems, its physical design are all centered around the ability to get as much information in as short amount of time as you can. So this is the real deal, what you have. Next slide. And the reason why I say that is because right during the time that I was visited in regards to this project, we were working on a project called Minerva, which is a planet finder. And the picture that you see is one of these telescopes in a housing known as an Aquan. It was set up in Pasadena to test it and to run it for a year in an industrial way to see if it would stand up. And if we go to the next slide, finally, there is all 5 of these telescopes installed in a robotic array connected to spectrometers, and they now search the sky for new planetary systems around stars. So congratulations on what you've done, what you've provided here. I think I think you can be proud that what you've done is on the forefront. So we hope to continue working with you, because after all, we are very committed to the not only the harvest of the starlight, but to inspire the generations to come.
Very nicely done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask the next speaker, Professor Emeritus Ashley McDermott from College of the Desert. Professor McDermott taught astronomy at COD from 1964 to 2003. He is the founder, director, and advisor of the Astronomical Society of the Desert. He was awarded the Bruce Blair Gold Medal, Clifford Holmes Award, and the Robert Burnham Award for outstanding contributions to popular, professional, and amateur astronomy. The Bruce Blair Medal is the highest honor which the American Amateur Astronomy Organization can bestow upon an individual. It's basically the Nobel Prize for amateur astronomers. Number 6752, that's asteroid Ashley. Do you have a picture of that by any chance, Josh?
It's a streak of light against a
Well, I
bunch
went
of
in the
stars.
backyard with my iPhone last night and took a picture of it. So there it is. That's your asteroid. It's named after you. It's Ashley's asteroid. So thank you for being here today, and it's all yours, Professor.
I'm dreaming this. This isn't real. This isn't going on. This is not happening to me. That I'm standing before a group in a lovely city next door to where I've been for 35 years, within 10 miles of College of the Desert. And you've built an observatory. Not only have you built an observatory, but it's a beautiful observatory. I've seen pictures of it, and a 27-inch telescope. I cannot tell you how delighted I am to be here today to congratulate you on the acquisition of this instrument. And, you know, we always talk about scientific research. Well, I grew up with Griffith Observatory. I worked with Griffith Observatory. I served with the people up at Griffith are very close friends of mine. You know, I've worked with Clement Shaw, and now Ed Krupp and I are old buddies. And you know, I'm a publishing astronomer. I'm a public astronomer. I'm not a research astronomer. And you folks are doing a tremendous thing here with this new observatory. I've been here 40 years, and again and again and again, I've tried to get people interested in a planetarium. We actually, the president of the college actually had a planetarium in a box. He wanted me to direct it, and we wanted to build it. Nobody would pay the money for it. So Roy McCall and I, our dream went scattering, but I got out there and taught. I founded the Astronomical Society. I spoke all over the valley. I spoke to people everywhere in Southern California. I've been on the executive committees of several major amateur groups and professional groups. And yet, behind my back, down the road, Richard Wood tells me that Rancho Mirage has building an observatory right behind my back. It's amazing that you people snuck in behind me. And I'm delighted. I'm absolutely delighted. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here at this moment telling you this, that I finally started to give up in despair that we've got amateur groups, we've got telescope parties, we're people in backyard observing telescopes, and someday we'll have a planetarium. Well, you know, planetarium like at Griffith, only a small planetarium, but bingo, I turn around and Richard tells me that you're building an observatory. And I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the plans, I'm looking at the photos. It's a beautiful observatory. And a 27-inch telescope is not to be sneezed at, gang. It's a beautiful telescope. I've seen pictures of it. It's a research telescope as well as a telescope well suited for getting the word out to the people, getting the word out to what astronomy is all about, getting the word out that you, Rancho Mirage, have spearheaded this whole thing. And I'm dreaming this. I'm standing here talking to you, and I'm going to wake up, and I thought, this is not really happening. These people really haven't done this, but you have. I'm looking at all the names on the banister here. Richard Kite is not unfamiliar. We've met. And of course, I've talked to Randy quite a bit on the phone. Sharp people. All I can say is, I thank you, members of the City Council of Rancho Mirage, from the bottom of my heart, because you have become the spearhead of astronomy in the valley. And by astronomy, I mean amateur astronomy. Yeah, it's a professional telescope, but people are going to be looking through it. They're going to be looking through it. One thing you want to be very, very, very careful of, there's one star up there that you don't want to look through that telescope. That's the sun. Do not even think. The sun is very dangerous. People have blind themselves. Telescopes get burned. So keep away from that one star that's our star. Don't try to look at the sun. It's not a solar telescope. But as soon as the sun goes down, you've got the Andromeda Galaxy, you've got the Orion Nebula, you've got Hercules Cluster, you've got the Milky Way streaking across the sky. The heavens proclaim the glory of God. The firmament showeth its handiwork. One star leads to another. That's the 19th Psalm. That's my war cry for astronomy. And you folks, you're leading the way. I've tried to do this with Palm Desert. I've tried to do this with Indio. I've tried to do this with Palm Springs. I've tried to do this with Desert Hot Springs. And they all know who I am. I've been here since 1964, pushing astronomy. Coachella, we've had star parties down there. I've had my students. And you know, it's so lovely because my one regret when I've taught 42,000 students or a 45-year period that I could not teach in Spanish. Yet I had students who come to me and say, stop, Professor McDermott, stop. So I'd stop, and they'd repeat my lecture. I gave them 15 minutes in Espanol down along the railroad tracks in Coachella, and I'd get standing ovations. People enjoyed astronomy. I'd go up and I'd talk to Ed, and we'd reminisce about how astronomy is the ultimate showbiz. And of course, Krupp was able to get a $97 million fund to rebuild and refurbish Griffith Observatory, which is our focal point. And yet this is becoming a focal point. And you did it, people. You did it. I don't know where the spark plug came from. I'm looking around at all of you, and I think it all kind of came together. That you came up with this idea, that you came up with the money, that you came up with the telescope, and that you've got people at Palomar. Everybody says, Palomar, wow. Well, good. I'm glad. Palomar is a magic number. It's a magic word. But so is Mount Wilson. So is Yerkes. So is Harvard. So is my backyard observatory. So I'm just so happy that I'm here today speaking these words to you and telling you that you've done a beautiful job, and telling you that it's well done, and telling you that we're all with you. We're all with you. Keep up the good work. And this observatory, we want to make sure that we have a good sky. That's a shame we don't have a darker sky. It's a shame that you don't have much of your western sky is blocked by the mountain behind you, but so what? You've got planets, you've got the moon, you've got the galaxies coming up in the east. But most important of all, you want to make sure that people are running your telescope, our telescope. I kind of consider it's mine too, you know, that they're enthusiastic. It's the enthusiasm that's going to make this project really go. So I want to thank Randy for talking to me on the phone, and we've exchanged a lot of good ideas. We're going to go on doing that. I think you've got, I'll put a word in, I think you got a very, very good city manager going here. Very good city manager. Thank you so much for hearing me out. I appreciate it. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy, if I may.
Do I have any questions? Anybody want to throw rocks at me or anything?
Well, I'm going to tell a little story that has to do with the point you made about the darkness of the sky. Is when Randy and I went to Mount Palomar and talked to Dan McKenna, he referenced that being an important factor, the darkness of the sky. So we asked Mr. McKenna, Professor McKenna, Scientist McKenna, I'm sorry, you've got great titles. We asked him if he would come down and conduct a darkness or relative darkness of the sky for around our library. And Dan, if I misstate the numbers, correct me, but I think I remember them pretty accurately. He came down, he conducted a test one night across the valley, and we spoke to him the next day or two, and he said the number for Indio was in the 70s. Now, we didn't know what those numbers meant, and I still can't tell you what they meant. But he said in Indio, the number was in the 70s. In Palm Springs, the number was in the 90s.
Yes.
And at Rancho Mirage, at the exact site where we're building this, the number was 12.
And I hope you can keep it that way because
I hope
it's
so,
the
too.
population explosion that's doing it. When I first came down here, I could stand up on Highway 74 and look out and I see a little blob of lights here, a little blob of lights there, a little blob of lights there. It's not like being up at Griffith looking out over Hollywood. The valley is filling it with people. We're filling it up. We're lighting it up. But when I start talking about light pollution, I don't talk about light pollution. I talk about the fact that we're wasting $600 billion a year on electric energy lighting up the night sky. Put that light on the ground and get it out of the sky. And people more and more want to see, they'll get out at our star parties and they'll see the sky for the first time. We've had people in the San Fernando Valley who have never seen the night sky. And wow, and I tell them, I give them a positive thing to shoot for, that we're not only save electricity, but we're going to see something that we need to see, we need to appreciate. We need to know that we're not alone in the universe. Thank you so much.
Great message.
Well, your enthusiasm is infectious, and we hope that all of the people.
That's the nicest thing anybody said to me today. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much for having me. And thank you so very, very much for letting me harangue you for a few moments. Because you're my kind of folks. Even if you do live on the plant next door to Palm Desert. Up the road. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So full disclosure, Professor McDermott did give me an A in his class. I thought it was for amateur, but
Well, people, that's another thing that made me famous. I never read it on the curve. If you earned an A, you got an A. If you earned an F, you got an A. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for letting me speak to you for a few moments today. I think you're doing a great job, and I appreciate this project and the fact that you're really involved in it, that you believe in it, and that it's going to attract people to the city of Rancho Mirage. Because I've tried it with Palm Desert, I've tried it with Indio, but it's you guys. And I didn't even do it. You know, I didn't even know what was happening. I don't know if you know who Richard Wood is.
yes, he's one of your
Richard Wood is
students.
an old, dear beloved friend of mine. He's a member of the family. He's one of my former students. It was Richard that warned me, you guys are up to something. And, you know, Richard is my contact, Randy. Then you and I had this long talk on the phone. I hope we can keep in touch because I think you guys have done a terrific piece of work with this. I've gone back and I've looked at some of the other stuff. I think Rancho Mirage is, I say this in all total honesty, and it's not to give you a big splash, but I think you're doing an excellent job. You're one of the best city governments in the valley. And I mean that in all sincerity. I'm glad to be able to throw that at you in all sincerity. The fact that we're here having this conversation tells me this. So I appreciate you all so very much. And Randy, I appreciate the phone calls we've had, and I appreciate that Richard's, alerted me to this because, you get south of the border into Palm Desert, and sometimes you have no idea.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank-
I'm running on.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So the council will remember that Richard Wood was the speaker that supported the observatory when the planning department made the presentation on the preliminary development plan that you approved some months ago. So thank you for that. Curtis Goring is a teacher at Palm Springs High School, and Curtis is here today. He was also sitting in the back of the bus with me when we toured Mount Palomar and some of the other faraway places, and came back 9 hours later, dead tired, crumbs in our lunch boxes. Curtis, please.
So I'd like to thank you all for giving me an opportunity to speak to you this afternoon, and I'd just like to thank the people that have come before me. I was privileged to serve on the commission, albeit in a very small way. I was asked by Mike Fontana, who was heading up that commission 2 years ago, to provide some input into the project, and I have to say it was extremely welcome on my part. I like Professor McDermott here, longed for years for something like this to happen and never really knew how to pursue it. Really in my heart wanted that to happen and didn't know how it could ever happen. I guess I felt a lot like some of the Cubs fans I've read about in the past few hours who yearned for just a chance to go to the World Series, and here they are today, experiencing elation at just not only going to the World Series, but they won. And I feel a bit like that like Professor McDermott said, standing up in front of you today is just an amazing feeling. My experience is that people aged 3 to 103 all just share a joy and a wonder to look through a telescope, and it's a pleasure to be a part of that experience for people for the first time or for the 50th time. Last night, I do teach astronomy for College of the Desert, and last night I was in a lab with my students, a small class, and they were looking at the moon. They had to set up a telescope and orient it toward the moon, and some of them had never seen the moon before, and almost all of them, taking a look at that image for the first time through a telescope, gasped in delight at just the wonder of seeing that. And it's my opinion that every human being on this planet should have that experience of looking through a telescope. It's not like seeing something in a picture or on a screen. It really, truly is an amazing thing. I'd really like to thank Charlie Martin, the architect, for his work in not just wanting to make this right, but doing it right. I'd like to thank this council for the foresight and the vision, particularly Dana Hobart, for your vision in making this move forward. And I celebrate you all with this amazing accomplishment as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And our keynote speaker of the afternoon, architect on the project, Charlie Martin.
Trimmed your beard, huh, Charlie? You trimmed your beard.
It's growing. Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, and council members, the first thing is to just say thank you. Is this coming through?
Coming through.
Thank you for letting me do this project. I've got some people listed here. I'll be succinct. If you let me talk without a prompter, I'll keep talking. The city this observatory is easy for me to say. It's bigger than all of us. If you look through the eyepiece of any telescope and you can see what's going on out there, it's beyond. And some of these gentlemen have spoken, and some of the other people in this audience probably know a lot more than I'll ever know about what's going on. That's an easy statement to make. In my discussions, I talked with DOJ. There's an architect at DOJ that's very interested in this project to make sure that it meets the ADA compliancy. And every 2 years, we take tests to continue to keep our license alive, and it's always the ADA that's always got something going. So the DOJ said, what are you doing? And I told them, and they said, well, we haven't heard of any public entity, a city, that was doing anything like this. This is just unheard of. And so I believe that it may not be the only city in America, but in keeping with the idea of the Griffith Observatory, that gentleman wanted it to be free forever. And when this all started, it was with, thanks to the former Mayor Hobart and to Councilman Townsend, to the city manager, Randall Binder, who I communicated with and got to the meetings and started seeing what is going to happen here. Now, the interesting thing is, as an architect, and there's, I think Mike in the audience is still here maybe, you can certainly back me up on this one, and that is that if you ask an architect to design something, you probably either live in it, work in it, or you have something to do with it, or it was yours. Well, not so with an observatory. An observatory is design the observatory, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. And you kind of go, well, what about this? What about that? Well, you can't get the answers, because the answers are, they're not hidden, but you've got to look for them. So going down through this, the first thing that I did was I thought, who would I thank? And I'll remain anonymous, because everyone's going to remember looking at the red dwarf, but they'll never remember who the architect was. I mean, who was the architect for Mount Palomar? Who was the architect for Griffith Park? No. So this one's the same thing. In order of appearance, I'm one of Professor McDermott's students that came back, because back in the 80s, I thought, I got to do something, and I heard the hottest class, the hottest thing you could do would be to Professor McDermott's nighttime astronomy. And so I took 2 of the courses. I was impressed. I was blown away by it. And it wasn't all at sitting looking through an instrument. It was reading and listening, et cetera, a lot of classwork. So in dealing with the first person here would be Professor McDermott. That's the first person that came into my vision. And of course, you've heard him speak, and you know that it's just a well of information. And it's just, you could listen and listen and listen. So the second one that came into the periphery here, and who later accused me of stealing some of the, I think it was some of the staff from Mount Palomar, was Professor McKenna. And when you go there, and it's such a wonderful place, it's so beautiful, and there you are, you expect, herds of buffalo to be running across your yard. You just sit there and he talks, and you're dumbfounded. And you ask a question in English and you get it back in science. And so I'm looking for questions, I'm looking for answers as to what not to do while I'm designing this. And so he told me a few things not to do. Our first field trip that we took with the group was to the Griffith Observatory. And that was we met with Mark Pine, and then we went to their planetarium and had a show there. The Griffith Observatory is just like mind-boggling. There's so much there, you can't even, I couldn't take it in. You just can't do it. But that was a wonderful trip, and we were greatly received and taken good care of. The fourth person that came into the project was Curtis Goring, who you've just heard speak. And that, to me, was a really wonderful thing to focus in on exactly what is going to go on inside this project. This lectern right here, is this the right size? Is this what will happen? How will the flow go? And between the different parts of it. You have the observatory, which is a separate building. It's not connected to anything else. You then have the office, which during the meetings, the city manager jokingly said, "Oh, the Cosmic Office?" Well, it is the Cosmic Office. That's the name that stuck. Then you have the deck, which is for the, quote, amateurs to set up their equipment on. They're not amateurs. It's genius. And then we have the, well, I don't know what it really is. It's the trans, well, it's everything. It's the restroom. It's the dome. It's the Thunderdome. Getting from Curtis was getting things right here, right on the site. We spent time on the site and looked at it, and that was great information. And I probably avoided a good mistake by talking with him. I didn't just talk to him. Met with him. He spent time. We spent 3 or 4 meetings. We'd sit down and go through it. Number 5 was a professor at Mount SAC University, Heather Jones. Heather Jones had one word for me, which was like, "Don't do this," and it was called vibration. Mount SAC Junior College has an instrument, and they can see into deep space. They can do what most instruments can do. But because their observatory is built on a building, in a building on top of it, and they have a certain resonance or vibration, if they ever discover another planet, another world, another asteroid, it can never be printed. It can never be written down. It can never be recorded, because this is not an acceptable base to be able to discover something. The field trip we took to Modesto Junior College, Professor Ken Meidel, great guy. I said, "What don't you do?" And he said, "Well, let me show you." And around the instrument, you could see where it was open so that you could see the pedestal holding the instrument, and then the floor of the observatory didn't touch it. He said, "Well, the contractor just poured it all together." And he said, "I spent 3 weeks with a chipping hammer in there like this, going around to separate the observatory from the instrument." And he was down in between floors, chipping and getting rid of that. That was a good one. That also, it will come up in a minute here, it had a black interior, that inside of the dome. It was really nice. I mean, it was like the night sky is already here, and I loved it. So I was going to have the inside of this one black. Well, we get to another person, Dr. Frank Melchheimer. Dr. Frank Melchheimer is a builder of telescopes. Dr. Frank Melchheimer is a crusty, he's probably 10 years younger than I am, but he was still crusty as all get out. And I'd ask him a question, and he said, "Well, didn't you look at this or didn't you look at that?" I went, "Whoa, okay." He's got a great website, and he actually builds telescopes. He builds a celestial type that's not in the center of the observatory, but they sit out. Well, you find them in other observatories. I can speak knowledgeably of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff. Anyway, Melchheimer, and then also covering the other parts of this, Bruce Gottlieb, the Astronomical Society of the Desert. Bruce Gottlieb is the head of that. And I met with him and another man. I'm sorry, I can't. I put a call into him to see if I get his name. I think he's a dentist. His name is Bruce also. And Bruce Gaffney? Okay. The two of them, and they schooled me on what do we do with this outside deck. Now, the outside deck is just, well, there's a deck, go ahead. No, it's not that. Nothing with this building is just like, we'll go ahead and do it. This may not be rocket science, but this is the basis for rocket science. So don't make a mistake. Another person that I got involved with was Eric Simpson, who's the head of the company that's going to build it, SeaWest. And I'd called Ash Dome, and we would talk at any time we wanted to with Ash Dome or with PlaneWave. I called Ash Dome and I said, "Ash Dome, I want to paint the inside of the dome black." And the man that ran it said, well, he said, you need to talk to CWest because they're located out on the West Coast and they do most of the work for putting our domes up. And I said, oh, okay, fine. So I called and I got a hold of Eric and I said, I'm an architect doing this, doing that, and I just want to know, can you paint the inside of it black? And his answer was, well, what do you do after you paint it? And I said, well, I guess you just enjoy it. He said, no. He said, what do you do after you paint it? So I don't know. He said, you paint it again. And he said, let me tell you a little story. And if he's in the audience, I don't know if he is or not. This story is that one of the painted domes that was painted, one of the astronomers came in and sat down at it, pulled everything off, and started looking, and suddenly realized that he discovered another planet and was just beside himself until they realized that it was a chip of black paint that had come off and fallen onto the mirror. So that was it. So those are the people involved. I have discussed during the time this all went on about the helper. There will be a helper in the actual facility because there'll be another thing going on in the auditorium, but the observatory will be working by itself. But you'll need a person out there. And of course, to my mind comes, of course, the appearance of Marty Feldman as Igor. But I know that the man that is really going to handle the thing at the library is the ubiquitous Del Baxter. Now, he will be calling for something that you're going to be hearing about, Dark Sky. That's next. But thank you very much, and it's great.
Well, what a great presentation. I'll tell you, all of these speakers certainly inspire everyone here on the dais that we're doing the right thing for our residents, and not only the residents of Rancho Mirage, as the professor pointed out. We like to feel that we're making a contribution to the entire Coachella Valley, and we're going to be stimulating a lot of young minds that will pursue astronomy now and into the future. We talked about the uniqueness of having an observatory at a public library. As you pointed out, it may be the only one. We don't know that. But I tell you this, we sure are proud. We talked about Rancho Mirage High School earlier this evening, what an incredible job they're doing there, and all of the young minds that will have the opportunity to be exposed to this kind of science inspires us all. So we thank everyone for their input. We thank Charlie for your brilliance in designing this, and all of the people that have contributed so beautifully. And we couldn't be more appreciative. Thank you, Professor.
Can I ask a question? During all this, where did the first spark come from? Which of you, someone had to have a beginning spark that started this whole process with the telescope, the whole thing? Who can we go back to and say, this is the person that really started? Can we give anybody that credit?
Yes, you can give credit to Dana Hobart, who heard a whisper from the back of the room when he recited previously the word Herd Observatory, and he took the genesis of that, and it developed into what we have here today for approval. And again, we mentioned David Bryant. We like to feel that the Rancho Mirage Library is truly the cultural center of this area. It is only growing. It's becoming more vital every day and is recognized by all of the cities here as a classic institution of learning. And so Dana would be the originator, and we all thank him for his contribution. Dana, do you care to elaborate any more about that?
Well, I appreciate those nice thoughts. I did want to mention that Mike Fontana is also here. Mike was part of our beginning committee that we put together, and he brought a lot of the work together and a lot of investigation and helped us all in a myriad of ways. David Bryant got sort of secondary recognition, but David has been very much in the center of motivating the project forward and coming up with ideas and program potentials for once it gets started, and has demonstrated an immense excitement about the relationship between an observatory and the library and what it'll mean for programs within the community room of the library, so that we can have 300-400 people at a time watching shows. We'll have TV screens or whatever, however it's to be projected. But it will be an academic tool for all of the valley, for all of the kids of the valley, even if those kids are in their 90s. It'll just be a wonderful experience for us all. And again, I would like to again mention Marilyn Bauer, because she was the one who was the little voice in the back that said the words that got me thinking about it, and kept thinking about it for a year, and it never left. I kept thinking, wow, maybe that is doable. And then I started talking to Randy about it. And without Randy, this project would not exist. He was excited by it. He saw the potential that it held for the city and for the valley and for students everywhere, and was just tremendously excited. Cried a little bit on the way up to Mount Palomar because he didn't like my driving, but but at any rate, Randy has been clearly a focal point in moving this forward, and we would not be here without Randy. And our council has been supportive from day one on the project. It seems like every member of the city council went through an analytical process, thought about it, thought about the expense. It's not an inexpensive project, that's for sure. But what you get for your dollar is more than almost any other expenditure that you could begin to identify. And our council went through that process, I'm sure, and that's why it has stayed on track, because the council was bright and they recognized a project that would be unique to the city, and they've been supportive, as I said, right from the beginning. So anyway, it's a great day for us to be moving forward, and I thank all of you who have been here. Charlie, had many conversations with Charlie over the past couple of years now, I guess it's been. And he's been not just an architect working on the project, but his heart has diffused through the entire project, and the excitement that he brings to this project is far beyond what a normal job would be. His blood, as yours, Professor, is in this sort of an endeavor. His blood is into it as deeply as any of us. So we thank you to Charlie again, and thank all of you who are participating. This is it's really something special.
Thank you, Dana, and all the kind comments. Is there anyone else in the audience that has not spoken that cares to say anything additional? If not, I will ask for a motion regarding the resolution number regarding the observatory.
I think Mr. Hobart should make that
Item number 11 on
motion.
your calendar.
Dana?
Well, it'll be a pleasure.
Dana, would you like to make that motion?
Surely. I move that the City Council award the contract for the construction of the Rancho Mirage Library Observatory project to the lowest responsible and responsive bidder, Seawest Enterprises, Inc., in the amount of $2,989,500, and authorize $153,000 for construction, surveying, materials testing, required inspections, and design services.
And I will second that.
And Mayor Pro Tem Townsend has seconded that. Please vote. And congratulations to all of you. The motion is approved. And the observatory is going to be a great addition to the city of Rancho Mirage, and we thank everybody for their contribution.
I'm delighted to be here present at this moment. It's nice that an observatory is coming into existence. The old astronomer feels good about it.
Good.
And Professor, we're honored to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that kind
Good. Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes.
Listening to everybody, the amazing thing is to have such enormous talent that is in this valley that begot everybody to put this together is unbelievable, because this, I think like Charlie said, this isn't building a two-bedroom house. The work and the layers and layers that went into this and the time and effort for everybody, mostly in this valley, is amazing. And I commend you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Those are apt comments. Before we go to the next item, I wanted to comment during the council comment portion that today was kind of a bittersweet day from the standpoint that prior to the meeting today, I had the honor of attending and saying goodbye to Mel Haber, who has lived in Rancho Mirage for many, many, many years. Mel was an institution in Palm Springs. His restaurant, the Ingleside Inn, and Melvin's Restaurant has been there for almost 40 years. Mel was a good friend, a terrific philanthropist, headed Angel View for over 21 years, and recently has been directing Safe House of the Desert from a philanthropic standpoint. He will be sorely missed and was a wonderful contributor to our area. So with that, I would merely want to say goodbye, Mel, and thank you for all of your contributions over the years. The next item on our agenda is the CV Link. Dana, would you like to make some comments about that?
Well, just three things have kind of popped up since last we spoke. The CV Link has received a state grant of about $24 million. We were asked by someone whether or not that had any effect on Rancho Mirage. Does that mean that the CV Link could come into Rancho Mirage? And the answer to the question is no, it affects nothing as far as Rancho Mirage is concerned. The only way CV Link could come into Rancho Mirage is on the approving vote of a majority of the residents voting in the city of Rancho Mirage. So it would take a vote of the public for CV Link to come here, and the grant doesn't affect it in any way. The other point, Indian Wells is probably in the process of being sued. It's being set up now on the CVAG, Coachella Valley Association of Governments. CVAG is claiming Indian Wells has to pay back $2 to $3 million because CVAG approved building a sound wall in Indian Wells using Measure A funds that they say they shouldn't have approved. The approval was made by CVAG, and they're trying to get Indian Wells to cough up that money. I don't think Indian Wells is going to be bullied, and I don't think that CVAG will eventually get that money from Indian Wells because CVAG itself approved the project, and CVAG's superior organization, Riverside County Transportation Commission, also approved the program. And so for 10 years later now, for CVAG to claim that they were misguided in giving that approval, that they have an entitlement to that $2 to $3 million back. Statutes of limitations and other legal arguments exist that I suspect that CVAG is not going to be successful in their pursuit. And everybody who knows anything about the situation knows that CVAG is pursuing this simply because they are upset and angry with Indian Wells for having the audacity to put the idea of the CV link to a vote of the public. That vote will take place on November 8th, and if they're anything like Rancho Mirage, when we had a similar vote, it was 80% not to buy into the project, and I rather suspect that even with this pressure that's being exerted on Indian Wells, I don't think that the voters of Indian Wells are likely to fall for it. And then finally, you've probably seen the title, that's the article, a copy of it. It says, Indio agrees to $18 million judgment, not paying yet. Well, I noticed in the, well, let me first state what the $18 million had to do with. There was a project that is nearly completed called the Jefferson overpass, the Jefferson Overpass down in Indio, where a lot of the freeway comes in and out, and it's a wonderful project and very much needed. But what happened is Indio, City of Indio, apparently approved the project when it shouldn't have, because they hadn't purchased all of the land in the area of the project. And some people, some years earlier, had bought, I think it was 9 acres of land that's right in the heart of all of this, bought 9 acres and then kept waiting for permits to build. They had commercial enterprises in mind. And they, all of a sudden, the overpass project took priority, and as it turns out, that land, those 9 acres that business or businessmen or whatever it was that they bought, has become worthless. And they filed suit against the City of Indio to get that back, their investment back, plus loss of business profits and attorney's fees. And the Superior Court took this position of the City of Indio, saying they didn't have to pay that. But on appeal, the appellate court said that Indio did have to pay the money to the people that bought those 9 acres, and they have to pay them something like $18 million judgment. It's probably gone up, it's at 10% a year, so it's probably right around $20 million or more now, that Indio has to pay that back. Well, I can understand that. That's a legal situation that Indio apparently got itself into. But in the article in the newspaper, there was a paragraph. I'll read the paragraph. On June 24, the city agreed to pay the developer $18 million, but because Indio was acting as the lead agency for the interchange project at the time, the legal fees will just be added to the total cost of the $70 million project, according to City Manager Martinez. Due to the way CVAG, Coachella Valley Association of Governments, of which Rancho Mirage is a member, as is each city in the valley, due to the way CVAG is dispersing the cost of this project among all of the cities, all meaning 100%, I assume, all therefore meaning including Rancho Mirage, due to the way CVAG is dispersing the cost of this project among all of the cities it will benefit, Indio will only have to pay about $2.3 million, he added, Martinez added, which will come from the general and transportation funds. You may recall, end quote, you may recall that transportation funds, that term, is a euphemism referring to Measure A funds. So apparently there's something going on where CVAG and its executive director, Tom Kirk, may be thinking in terms of all of the cities surrendering some amount of the Measure A funds that they have an equity in, that are in possession of CVAG. And so we'll have to find out more about that. But that's a big debt, 18 million, and it doesn't say whether or not that includes interest or not. But it doesn't include attorney fees. It's probably another $1 million or more. Anyway, we'll keep you posted on what's going on with CVAG and issues such as those.
Thank you, Dana. The next item on our agenda is item number 7 that will be handled by Josh Altop, and it involves a single-family permit case number SFP 16006. Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you is an application for a custom single-family residence totaling 6,962 square feet. The 2-acre site is located at the terminus of Desert Drive and is accessed via a bridge that traverses the storm channel. The project site is surrounded by the Santa Rosa Mountain foothills to the south and west and the storm channel to the north and east. The ranch-style home is centrally located within the project site. The custom residence, as designed, complies with and exceeds all required setback minimums and lot coverage maximum for the Hillside Reserve zoning district. A second-floor covered outdoor deck is located directly above the first-level outdoor living space. The only means of access to this outdoor covered deck will be a set of exterior stairs on the eastern elevation. The red arrow indicates the location of the second-floor deck. The entirety of the home is single-story with the exception of this second-floor deck. The characteristics of the traditional desert ranch style are evident in the material choices, roofing, and sprawling indoor-outdoor living environment. Other features include the use of stone veneer, clear-story windows, and 2-piece Michelin clay tile roof, all of which add to the striking and unique look of this home. The land use element of the general plan provides policies and programs that staff takes into consideration when analyzing 2-story residences. These policies seek to preserve viewshed, privacy, and high architectural quality. These are some project facts. The parcel is completely isolated and not contiguous to any other residential development, with the closest residential neighbor over 350 feet away. The parcel is bounded by the Santa Rosa Mountain foothills and the storm channel. The finished pad elevation is 6 feet lower than the terminus of Desert Drive. The majority of the home is 15 to 17 feet in height or less, and the lot coverage is only 7.5%. In conclusion, the low-profile roof line, coupled with the minimal lot coverage, the lower pad height to adjacent properties, and the isolated location, has significantly decreased the mass, scale, and visual impact of the home. Also with second-story home, there's a height consideration. Section 1720-100 of the Ranch Mirage Municipal Code requires the City Council to make the following findings to grant approval of 2-story and over height structures subject to the following standards. Number 1, in addition to the minimum setbacks required, the setbacks shall be increased a minimum of 2 feet for each 1 foot of additional building height. The project has satisfied this requirement through its increased setbacks. Number 2, enhanced buffering to surrounding properties. The project satisfies this requirement through the isolation of the parcel itself in question. Number 3, a visual and spatial analysis relating building proportions, massing, height, and setbacks shall be conducted. The project itself satisfies this requirement through the minimal size of the second-story element and its proposed location at the rear of the home. Number 4, the need and appropriateness of the additional height shall be demonstrated. The project satisfies this requirement through the isolation of the project site and the configuration of the home's floor plan. And finally, number 5, compatibility and harmony with surrounding development, land use designations, and zoning shall be demonstrated. The project satisfies this requirement through the Hillside Reserve zoning being less intensive than the surrounding land uses. In summary, the home as proposed complies with all development aspects of the municipal code. The proposed two-story element takes into consideration the location of the structure on the site, the relationship of the proposed pad height and surrounding pad heights, and the significant distance to the nearest residential neighbors. All these factors culminate to create internal privacy and eliminate visual impact to surrounding homes. At the Planning Commission meeting, staff received a letter from the Rancho Mirage Community Association regarding the proposed resident and their concerns that if approved, the home would set a precedent for two-story structures. The Commission reviewed the letter and concluded that the home would not set a precedent and that the current conditions of approval were satisfactory for the home. The letter itself has been attached for the Council's reference. The Planning Commission fully endorsed the proposed resident and recommended that the Council approved the filing of a categorical exemption and approval of single-family permit case SFP number 16006, subject to the listed conditions of approval and findings. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions the Council may have.
Thank you, Josh. Does the council have any questions?
So this just replies to one second-story home. It doesn't change anything else with the city.
Correct.
Yes, this is not precedent-setting, and it's based upon the findings that are contained in your report. Is that accurate?
Okay. I have a question also. The home is very isolated. However, there's a lot of surrounding areas. How many homes would you estimate could possibly fit into that area at a future time?
Let me go real quick back to the aerial. So due to the location, the area outlined in red, it's the only piece on that side of the storm channel on the southwest side that could be built upon, because surrounding it are the Santa Rosa Mountains, and then you have the storm channel, and there's no other level land. And on top of that, everything is parceled bigger, and it's zoned hillside reserve, so you're technically only allowed one home per lot in the hillside reserve. So in that area outside that red box, it's all one giant parcel, all owned by one ownership. You can only build one home technically.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one.
Yes, Richard?
Josh, going back to that, that last item was on the screen, can you bring that back? The road Desert Drive, is that still gated and chained off?
Correct, it's still gated and chained off.
And so the access to this property is by which means?
It'll be through that gate. The owner has shown proof that he owns the rights through that gate to be able to access that property as private property. So what will happen is he is going to build a gate on the opposite side of the bridge to isolate his private property. So basically we're taking the gate where it's at now and moving it back about 25 feet.
So before the bump and grind trail was moved to Palm Desert, this was the main access onto the bump and grind trail.
Correct.
Is it still, are there still more than one owner going up that road?
To the best of my knowledge, in doing my research and seeing what happens, most people now know that they have to go behind Target and Palm Desert to access the trailhead. I didn't see anybody out there. I didn't receive any communication. The homeowner's aware of the situation because he lives in Rancho Mirage currently and is very aware of the history of this particular property and what's happened. But to the best of my knowledge, people have made the shift, made the change, and they're now going to the new location to start the trailhead, so they're not getting the typical traffic we once got.
So there won't be any other requirement for access by other property owners through that gate?
The only property that you can get to is his, or this individual property. It's the only property you can access that I'm aware of. If, I guess what you're saying is, would anybody need to get access to any of the other properties surrounding this through that bridge?
Randy, do you recall the property owner that owned the property above this one?
McAllister.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's a good point, and maybe you've researched this already, Josh, but the land beyond the driveway or across the bridge, I guess through this property, is shown where the red is. That is zoned, it's privately owned, and it's zoned hillside reserve, so conceivably, however large that property is, there could be one house that's allowed on that property. And I think your question is, how would that house get access, or how would that property owner get access to his property if this is built and constructed this way?
You know, it's a really good question. I got to be honest, Richard, I didn't analyze that. It didn't come up in topic, to be frank. The only access across the wash right now is that bridge. I can talk to the applicant and we can discuss those options. I also know the project representative is here. He may be able to give you a little more insight to that particular question.
Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Creating a landlocked situation is not a good thing for us to recommend.
No, it is not.
Checking from Planning 101.
Yeah, because that may, when you create a landlocked situation, then there's a whole easement issue that needs to be resolved between the property owners, which will get us stuck into the middle of that battle.
Yes.
Are there any other comments? Did you say the representative is here? Does the representative care to speak on that subject?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Daniel Thornbury, 70390 Highway 111, Rancho Mirage. I'm the project architect representing the Kincaid family. And I would like to answer any of your questions that come up. First of all, I'd like to say what an inspirational presentation that I am following. What a magnificent thing you've done. Anyway, as far as being landlocked, Mr. Kincaid does have ownership of the bridge, and the only people that access currently, or that have access currently to the opposite side, is his family, the owners of the property. And right now, Coachella Valley Water District has an access on the south side of the wash, and we're providing gate access for them, but only them. And one of the things that we are doing is to secure the property from people passing through the project and possibly bringing liability to us, falling off the bridge and this kind of thing. We want to propose, in our proposal, we're adding a 5-foot fence on either side of the existing bridge. Now, as far as providing access to the adjacent property or the property behind him, there's no reason why that individual could not put his own bridge across the wash from that same cul-de-sac, providing access to his 640 acres or whatever it is, up through the old bump and grind trail that is to the west of our property. I know that the client is working diligently to provide access to the Coachella Valley Water District, but it's not something that he feels necessary that he has to provide access through a private bridge to the adjacent property. That property can be accessed from the cul-de-sac, but it shouldn't be his responsibility to give up his rights on his property to make it easier for somebody else to get to theirs. That's the way I'm sure that he would feel about it. But if I can have any other questions or answer this one any further, I'd entertain the thoughts.
So are there any questions from the council?
Which side of the bridge is there going to be an automatic gate, or how are you doing this?
Pardon me?
On the outside of the bridge or the inside of the bridge closest to the house? Is that where the gate is going to be?
The gate will be located approximately, or a minimum of 25 feet from the nearest property line, which is on the far side of the gate, or I mean of the channel. From that, that'll be 25 feet back, so that the height limitations of the setback can be met where we'll be putting the new gate. And that will be a private gate with remote control and access for the homeowners and guests for this property.
And he built the bridge?
No, he did not build the bridge.
Who built the bridge?
I believe the bridge was built by Coachella Valley Water District. I'm not sure.
And where is it with any fire problems with access from the fire departments? Did that come into this at all?
There'll be a Knox box provided at the gate. The gate is designed to within fire department standards in height and width. The driveway is appropriate width and a turnaround area for the fire equipment. I believe there's a fire hydrant not far from the location. So that's been taken into consideration.
Thank you.
How wide is that bridge?
The bridge is approximately 25 feet wide, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure of that, but that's what I recall.
Josh, in looking at the map in our book, which is after page 717 or 718, that road goes up a ways, and it was always my understanding that there was a property owner up there other than the water district who has access to that property. Do we know any ownership that's changed hands on that road that goes up to the bump and grind?
I haven't heard of any change in ownership, to the best of my knowledge.
Randy McAllister owned that. He had access up that road, and I know he had access to the lots on the.
He may have had something to do with building the original bump and grind, now that I
Right.
think about it.
Right. The truck trail or the truck path was built by him originally, I think.
Yes, to provide access to a parcel that's further up the slope. There's at least 2 parcels I know of.
Right.
All right, I think, Steve, would you like to make a comment about
Yeah, I
this?
just want to clarify my response to the landlocked situation. Now, whenever a city or any other regulatory agency that regulates land use, if we exercise our powers in a way that may create a landlocked situation, we expose ourselves to a possible claim for what we call inverse condemnation, which is essentially an argument, a claim that the city has deprived the property owner of all use, reasonable use of the property.
Access.
And so, which in this case would be access, which deprives them of all value of the property. That's a possible claim that may be filed against us. But one of the conditions of approval, which is a standard condition of approval for all of our single-family permits, is that we have an indemnification provision in here that requires the permittee, the property owner, to indemnify the city in the event there is a claim filed, and that would cover inverse condemnation.
Well, is there, just a question, is there enough questions hanging out there that we could carry this over to get these questions answered?
Yes, that's going to be my recommendation, actually, that
Thank you.
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that there are a number of questions here, and that until we're satisfied regarding this landlocked situation, and as the city attorney just mentioned, any sort of indemnification, that I'm going to recommend that we continue this till the next meeting and have it brought before the council, depending upon the status at that time. Yes, Randy?
You want to make those comments after you close the public hearing and see if there's anyone else to speak.
And I will do that. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to make a
May I
comment?
ask-
Or, sir, would you like to make?
I'd like to ask one question. if my client's property is, the actual property lines are in a position, if you look at the site plan, you'll notice that the property lines do come right up to the gate. And is my client going to be required to provide access across his property in order to provide access for somebody else?
The answer is no. Yeah, the answer is no to that. We can't condition that. What we want to look at is we want to look at whether the project as approved by the city is going to deprive the property owner of all possible access to his or her property.
So
But
if he
there's
can
no-
provide
we-
his
yeah,
own,
we're not gonna- we-
if he wants to get to his property, he could put his own bridge in across the wash, correct?
That's something that we can look at.
Yeah, well, we
with
need to
staff.
look at that. Your comment earlier, Dan, about having a separate bridge and his own access, I think that would be a good design solution. Well, at least myself, I'm not prepared to say that that can be done. I don't know that that property touches the public street. Do you know if that property touches the public street? That's the first thing we have to look at.
It's on I'm not sure where his property is.
Exactly.
Or the adjacent property is. I don't know if it comes to the street or not.
Mm-hmm. But right now.
But our property does.
Right.
And I don't see that the development of this lot should be held in abeyance because somebody else might have a little bit of a problem getting to their property legally. That's my thought.
You know, going way back, there was a time when they tried to put on all the property lines on this trail going up the side of the mountain. It was surveyed because there was some issue about where some of the property owners' property was further up the road. And, you know, I don't, in looking at the proposed lot, it just seems to me like it's breaking or it's impeding the access to the upper property.
But Bud would like to make a comment.
Okay. Randy?
Bud, you have a comment?
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you, Bud Kopp, Planning Manager. There are no new parcels being created with this. These are existing parcels. However, the point is a good point. That is one. We should confirm whether or not the larger parcel that surrounds these smaller parcels, whether or not it indeed touches an existing public right-of-way or not. That wasn't something that was analyzed because these are existing parcels, and actually each of these parcels could have a dwelling unit on it, and part of the conditions of approval is a lot merger, so you'll end up with one home rather than two. However, the larger resident or hillside reserve parcel, which is one house per 640 acres, we will look and see if that touches Desert Drive. If you wish to continue this item, we will look and see if it touches Desert Drive. It may also touch Mag Falls or some other road. It could even touch a road in Palm Desert. As long as it touches a public right-of-way, then we would feel comfortable still recommending that you move forward with this. So we would support continuing it, and we would bring the information back to you.
If we continued this till the next meeting, does that give you sufficient time?
Certainly.
To analyze?
Certainly.
We're going to agendize it. We will agendize it for the next meeting. We'll continue at the shortest possible time.
We will have an amended staff report for you for the next meeting.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the public regarding this? Any other council comments? Josh, did you want to say something else?
I was just thinking about it, Mr. Mayor. I want to be able to answer this question completely and successfully. I don't want to hastily come back to council prematurely and not have a solid answer for everybody. So if I may request, can I get an extra meeting? So the first meeting in December and continue with that gives me a full 4 weeks, gives me a chance to work with the applicant, work with adjacent property owners, and then find a conclusion and an answer to bring back to the council.
Sure. Is that acceptable to?
Well, it's, we have an interested party who's hoping this gets decided faster. I mean, can't we do it in 2 weeks?
I can do anything.
If we reversed our positions and we put ourselves in issues.
I empathize. I empathize with the property owner. They want to get this done. They've been patient. They've gone through planning commissions. Council was their final decision maker. They're hoping today to get that green light. So I will work with Dan. I'll work with Mr. Kincaid, the property owner, and I will be back in 2 weeks with an answer.
Okay, well, then we'll continue it to the November 17th meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other comments about that? Okay, that's what we will do, and we'll hope that we can resolve it, sir, within that period of time for you and your client. I don't think we need a motion. Do we need a motion?
You need to close the hearing, and then that was the motion.
Okay. We will close the hearing on that now. I don't think we need a motion, do we, to continue it, Randy?
Motion to continue to the 17th of
Okay.
November. So moved.
Second.
Please vote. And the motion is approved, and the item is continued to the meeting of the 17th. The next item will be presented by Mina Dukic, our assistant planner, regarding preliminary case number PDP 16001. Mina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. The next request is the consideration of a preliminary development plan for a new medical office building located off of Highway 111. This project includes the filing of a categorical exemption of environmental impact and the construction of a 4,600 square foot medical office building with associated landscaping and parking lot improvements. The location is on the south side of Highway 111 between Ocotillo Drive and Magnesia Falls Drive. The existing land use is District 2 of the Highway 111 East Specific Plan, General Commercial. The project site consists of one parcel totaling 0.63 of an acre. Access to the proposed building is provided at two locations. The first is from the signalized intersection at Highway 111 and Bob Hope Drive via an existing driveway. The second entry is located at the rear of the property with access provided to the existing property to the east. The proposed building complies with all development standards of District 2. Staff analyzed the site design, lot coverage, building height, and parking for the proposed medical office building, and all requirements have been met and exceeded. There will be a 6-foot-high block wall continued on Sahara Road to close any potential access from Sahara Road, and it will be to match the existing wall. The proposed multi-tenant medical office building consists of 9 offices and 5 exam rooms. In evaluating the proposed medical office building and its potential impact to residential neighbors to the south, staff analyzed several factors. One is the installation of canopy trees and the 6-foot-high decorative block wall. Second, the elevation of Sahara Road and the pad height of the proposed building equals a difference of about 6 feet, meaning that a large portion of the proposed building is screened by the block wall and difference in elevation. Third, the approximate distance from the nearest home and the proposed building is about 200 feet. At 14 feet 6 inches in height, it can be reasonably concluded that the proposed building will not impose a negative visual impact to the residences along Sahara Road. The color palette for the proposed office building incorporates varying shades of gray as chosen by the owners, who will also be the tenants. Architectural pop-outs are utilized on multiple elevations of the building, which do well to break up facades and create visual interest for onlookers. The western elevation includes a substantial overhang at the entry. This design feature will provide solar screening for the entrance and will match well with the building. An interesting component of both the west and east elevations is the roof line. 2 angled accent features have been positioned atop the roof in a way which evokes thoughts of the butterfly-style roofs that were prominent in mid-century design and which are not uncommon in the Coachella Valley. The east elevation, the rear of the building, provides an enclosed outdoor patio. The patio is meant as an employee-only area and will add diversity to the elevations. The proposed landscaping is complementary to the building design and derived from native vegetation and other plant materials that will thrive in the Southern California desert environment. The Sahara Road Parkway landscape plan was approved by the Rancho Mirage Community Association and City Council in 2000, which set requirements for the Sahara Road Parkway. The applicant has met the requirements of said landscape plan. After the Planning Commission packets were distributed to the Planning Commissioners, the applicant contacted staff with questions regarding conditions of approval. Staff met with the applicant to discuss their concerns, and as a result, staff modified multiple conditions of approval, which were accepted by the Planning Commission and have been incorporated in the City Council staff report. Staff has analyzed the proposed project carefully and has addressed any concerns with the conditions included in the staff report. The project meets and exceeds the requirements of the Rancho Mirage Municipal Code and the Highway 111 East Pacific Plan Design Guidelines. Staff has not received any outside correspondence regarding the proposed development plan, and staff recommends that the City Council approves preliminary development plan number 16001, subject to the conditions of approval and based on the content and findings in the staff report. This concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to address any questions that the council members may have.
Thank you, Mina. Yes, Richard?
Excellent job. You really brought out all the main points. You did a good job on that. Question I have has to do with the landscaping on the other side of the wall on Sahara. As you know, we're trying to re-landscape that whole stretch from Mag Falls down all the way to the end. Do we have specific requirements in there for the developer on what he puts on that side of the wall?
Yes, the proposed landscape plan currently meets the current standards. The applicant has been made aware that there could be modifications that are to be made to the plan, that we are working with a consultant to update the parkway plan, and they have agreed to follow those recommendations prior to installation.
Okay, great. One last question on the site plan, page 3, which is the lighting plan.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the parking area, which is adjacent to the wall on Sahara, doesn't look like we have any ballards or lighting fixtures out there. Can you tell me what we have there?
Sure. The southern portion of the site plan has a carport structure that is to be lighted. So that will provide lighting for those parking spaces in that area.
Okay, in the parking structure itself?
Underneath the parking structure, and it's to be screened so that no lighting is...
Okay, with that lighting, will that impact the people that live on the other side of the wall on Sahara?
No, it will not. It is conditioned to be screened away from any potential negative impacts to the Sahara Road residents.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dana?
Just one question. Is there some standard that we're following when we require that there be one charging station as compared to 2, for example?
No, it's just a standard condition that we include at least a minimum of 1. We could request more.
How expensive? Well, I was thinking 2, but I don't know how long they last, and I don't know how much they cost. I don't want to impose some burden, but that's, more extensive than reality would call for. But I would think that 2 is better than 1, unless it's too expensive. Does anybody, any idea what the expense is for that?
I would think it's predicated upon the square footage, is it not?
No, I don't
I
think that.
don't think so.
No?
I don't think it's predicated upon square footage, and there's nothing in the code that says one charging space per 20 or 40 parking spaces.
Didn't we have a provision for some of the medical buildings that were built
Yes.
previously as to the requirement on the number of charging units?
That was the number of automated external defibrillators, AEDs, which in
Well,
effect
that
are
was
charging
close,
units
so-
also.
Yeah, it
Different
is-
kind of charging
It
unit.
is a charging unit.
You lay down and get recharged right there? Okay.
Or maybe they can adapt the AED to charge your car.
Dean, are you suggesting pursuing it further as far as the?
Well, I don't think it's fair to the applicant to push it, but I think it would be a good idea for us to do some investigation to find out what a good standard is. And if it's, say it's 1 per 20 spaces and 2 for 21 to, 39,
50.
40, or 50.
Mhm.
And we should have some sort of a guide pool
Yes.
for this.
Yeah, I don't think there is, because I know in those shopping centers that are being remodeled, that
Well,
there is.
over at the one we just finished, Rancho Las Palmas, they have at least 2, and I'm
That's
not sure
correct.
if it's
I
more than
think it
2
is-
or not.
I think it is 2. Yeah.
Which is, certainly this one would be adequate here if 2 is some kind of an appropriate standard.
Can we,
Yes, we will look into that and bring back something for council consideration.
are there any other comments? Council have any other comments?
Look at the cooling around the to see
Does the public have any comments?
die or not.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Michael Kiner. My address is 70177 Highway 111 in Rancho Mirage, and I am the architect and also the representative of the owners. Just to comment on the charging station situation, we have 30 parking spaces with 1 charging station. So if, for example, if you're using a comparison of the shopping center across the street, I'm sure they have more than 60 parking spaces for 2 charging stations. So I think our ratio is probably far exceeds anything that's been approved recently. I understand your concern, of course, you wanting to be able to charge as many cars as possible. I wish I could give you a price range. I mean, I've looked at the price ranges. It could be anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000 for a charging station. I guess it just depends on the, how quickly the cars charge, the quality of the charging station, and I'm not really an expert to be able to give an opinion on that.
Well, I'd say you're sliding under the bar anyway, Mr. Kiner, because we don't have a standard, and it wouldn't be fair to just arbitrarily impose a standard on you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think it's a valid point, though.
We'll get to the next guy.
Okay, thank you. And I'm also here to answer any other questions anyone might have about the project.
Thank you. Any questions?
Good-looking project.
Thank you very much.
Would
Thank you.
would your dad have been applauding last night?
Well, he played for the Cubs. I was born in Chicago when he was playing for the Cubs. I went back and checked their records when he was playing there, and they were terrible.
They never got close, huh?
But that was quite a night. I was just saying, Ray Lopez, who's our landscape architect here, I was saying this would be a good day to be in Chicago.
Sure would.
Well, they might have been terrible when he was there, but it wasn't because of him, I'll tell you
No,
that.
thank you. But he also played for Cleveland, so, but I think he would have been rooting for the National League. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we've exhausted that. There are no other questions from the dais. May I hear a motion, please?
I will make the motion to move the City Council approve 1, the filing of a categorical exemption of environmental impact pursuant to CEQA, Section 15332, in fill development projects, and 2, approval of preliminary development plan case number PD T16001 based upon the content, findings, and conditions in the staff report.
There's a motion and a second. Please vote. And the motion is approved 5-0. The next.
Mr. Mayor, one comment about that project is that it does reflect the architecture of the building in front of it, right? The Peter Bray designed building. Is that what you were looking for, Michael, on that? Architecturally. Yeah.
You know, Randy, with the construction of this building and the other one that's going up in that same area, it's really going to improve that whole area and will look 100% better than it does right now.
It will. It'll make it a lot more appealing. Absolutely. The next item will be presented by our city attorney, Steve Quintanilla, regarding amending section 14.120.115. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this summer, we had a conversation with Judge Vineyard, who's the presiding officer who presides over code enforcement cases. And we were in his courtroom representing the city of Moreno Valley in that case. And he informed us that in both the Riverside courts in Palm Springs and Indio, that he would prefer that the cities, instead of having abatement hearings in court, that we have the abatement hearings conducted either by an administrative officer selected by the city or the city council. And so that would save a considerable amount of time and resources with respect to getting abatement orders approved by the courts. So so there was an ordinance that was adopted at our recommendation by the council in the summer. And so the way the process works now is that when we send a code enforcement officer out to a site, they conduct a field inspection, they determine what the violations are, they report those violations to our office, and we make a determination as to how to proceed against that violator. And if it's a public nuisance situation, we schedule a hearing before the city council or an administrative officer instead of going to court now. And if the city council finds that the property is indeed a public nuisance and orders the abatement of the public nuisance, we take that in the form of a resolution, and we take that to the court, and the court will just sign off on it. So it really expedites the process. But since the time that we adopted this, there's been a lot of discussion over this issue, including with other city attorneys, and we decided that we would recommend that we make some minor modifications to the ordinance to kind of not only shore up some of the due process provisions, but also to streamline the hearing process. And so I'll just go over briefly just what those modifications are. The first thing that we're recommending is that we make this hearing process optional, meaning that if we will only have the hearing before the city council or this administrative hearing officer if the violator does not comply with the public nuisance notice. So it's optional rather than mandatory. We are also recommending that that we also allow the city manager to appoint an administrative officer in lieu of taking it to the city council. So that would also make that optional, because we're sure that the city council is not going to want to hear all of these public nuisance cases, particularly the ones that are not as egregious as others. But we're also recommending that we only notify those persons who have a recorded interest in the property, such as mortgagees and beneficiaries. And they would have to be recognized beneficiaries and mortgagees pursuant to recorded deeds. So that doesn't put us on a wild goose chase to try to track down every single person who may claim they have an interest in that property. We're also recommending that instead of using regular U.S. mail to send out notices, we use certified mail, return receipt requested, and that we only require those persons who have received notice from the city of the abatement situation and the public nuisance situation, and who are in fact responsible for the property to be held accountable for the problems and possibly the being accountable for paying or reimbursing the city for its attorney's fees. And finally, we are recommending that that we expand the scope of the evidence that the city council or this administrative officer can hear, and that can include even hearsay evidence, which is not permissible in court, but in the context of a hearing that's conducted by the city council, we can't consider hearsay evidence. And basically, hearsay evidence is evidence that's coming from a third party. You know, I heard that this person did this, or I've seen that this person did this. You know, so they will be able to use that as evidence in these hearing procedures.
So, Steve, let me just ask you a question about the hearsay evidence. In the California, the administrative manual, the evidentiary manual for administrative hearings says that you can take hearsay evidence, but it cannot establish a fact that has to be established if an objection is made to it. Is that the same?
No, yeah, it's basically the same. And we have that all spelled out in the ordinance. So what happens in the case of hearsay evidence is that the city council can receive that, right, and the city council makes a determination as to whether or not it's relevant. But if it's in fact irrelevant and we're sued over that determination, then that's, you know, well, basically you can't consider irrelevant hearsay evidence. And we spell that out in the ordinance now, because before we didn't even reference hearsay evidence.
Well, the act that I'm referring to, I wish I could think of the name of it.
Your administrative procedures.
The state administrative procedures.
The state
Act,
uses.
Yeah. In that act, it says that hearsay evidence cannot establish a material fact. It can support a material fact, but it can't be used to establish it. Right. Is that, are we talking about the same thing?
Yes,
here?
That's what we're talking about. We can accept hearsay evidence as evidence to prove a fact, but we can't accept hearsay evidence to establish that fact.
Okay.
And the facts that we rely on in the context of these public nuisance hearings are based on what our code officers report back to us. So they're based on direct observations and site visits. So the hearsay evidence that we can receive is that, you know, from residents who will complain that, you know, I've seen that situation there for a long time, and even my neighbors who lived here before were complaining about that same situation that's been observed by your code enforcement officers. And in some cases, it's important that we establish a timeline with respect to how long those public nuisance conditions have existed. So we specifically add in the ordinance hearsay evidence as part of the evidence that can be considered.
You mentioned in one of them that you were reading that the hearing is conducted by administrative hearing officer or the city council. What are the criteria for being an administrative hearing officer? Is that the same as an administrative law judge, or is that something less than that?
No, it's something less. There's been some case law out of the county of San Bernardino a few years ago that it's out of the Court of Appeal that held that with respect to hearing officers that are retained by cities to oversee administrative hearings such as code enforcement, the only criteria is that they follow our rules of procedure that we provide to them and that they're neutral. So that's the only criteria, but in this particular, and they consider a city manager to be neutral. Yes, a city manager to be neutral. What we have to avoid doing is that we have to avoid hiring an administrative officer and paying that administrative officer only if the city prevails. So that's the only concern that we have to be concerned about with respect to neutrality.
We would have to designate who the hearing officer is. Wouldn't be some other.
Well, in this particular, in the proposed amendments, we're proposing that the city manager designates who the hearing officer is.
Are there criteria for being a hearing officer?
Yes, we have criteria spelled out in the current code in Title 14 with respect to being neutral, but more important than the qualifications is that they follow the rules. And we have a set of rules and procedures that are spelled out, which specifies what sort of evidence they can consider, how many, whether or not they, they have to spell it. They have to produce a report of all the evidence they heard and what their decision is based on. So there's criteria they have to follow. But they don't have to qualify as a mediator or as an arbitrator.
Who pays the administrative hearing officers, not salary, but per diem or whatever?
It's the non-prevailing party. So if the hearing officer declares that the city is the prevailing party, then the violator pays.
And the hearing officer has to chase the violating party to get paid?
No, we can get that through recording a special assessment against their property.
So he might not get paid now, but he'll get paid eventually if he lives long enough.
Yeah, well, the special assessments, instead of recording liens against properties like most cities do, in the city of Rancho Mirage, you adopted an ordinance a while ago that allows the city to record special assessments against the properties of violators to recover abatement costs. And so those special assessments show up on the property tax bill. So they have to be paid, they're treated just like property taxes. And the advantage of recording a special assessment versus a lien is that a special assessment is treated like a tax, so it takes priority over mortgages.
Well, if the city council becomes the hearing officers,
Hearing body.
The hearing body, pray tell how much time that will add to the average city council hours per week or month?
Well, fortunately, barring like a Rancho Mirage Country Club case, we do not have a lot of public nuisance cases. Most of them are resolved at the administrative level, thanks to Sandra Johnson. She gets most of these resolved. We very seldom have hearings here. I would say maybe 2 a year. Yeah, that's probably it. At the most, 2 a year. If we have 3, it's a busy year. In other communities, we have up to 15, 20 of them. But I got to tell you though, one of the big reasons why you don't have a lot coming to you is not because there aren't issues out there. It's because you have a very qualified and and very experienced staff that knows how to resolve these issues, so they don't come to this level.
Well, but this will be new. We're injecting a new wrinkle into the process. And,
Well, actually, I think it's removing a wrinkle.
I can see Sandra Johnson appointing me, for example, because she's mad at me because I irritated her.
Appointing you or citing you?
Appointing me after citing.
No, it's the city manager who appoints the administrative officer in lieu of the city council conducting the hearing. I would imagine that in other jurisdictions, the only kind of cases that come to the city council are the more complicated ones, such as a Rancho Mirage Country Club case. But if a lot of the other cases that our code compliance department deals with are not as severe or complicated as those cases. And again, that your staff is able to resolve a lot of those issues so they don't rise to the level of an appeal hearing or of an administrative hearing.
Well, one last appeal with respect to the city council getting that assignment. Will the city council have the authority to resist any attempt to appoint the city council and put the city council in the position of accepting or rejecting the suggestion the city council be the hearing officer?
Yes. If the city council doesn't want to hear the matter, they can ask the city manager to take on that responsibility. So the city manager will either serve as a hearing officer or appoint somebody to serve as a hearing officer.
Okay. Fair enough.
You have additional materials, Dave?
No, that concludes my report.
Are there any Questions from the council? Are there any additional questions that the public might have? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion, please. Hello?
I will do that. I will move to introduce and read by the only, in quotations, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Rancho Mirage, California, amending Section 14.120.115, Notice of Public Hearing of Chapter 14.120, Notice of Public Nuisance, in order to abate and appeal procedures of Title 14, Code Compliance and Remedies of the Rancho Mirage Municipal Code.
What is, I would second that, Charlie, but I don't understand what it means. Would you tell me what that means, that paragraph you just read?
Let's skip that. We're just looking for a second at the moment, please.
It means that the city manager will be in charge.
Okay.
Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Please vote.
You can't hide over in that corner.
Mayor Pro Tem Townsend, would you please put in your vote?
And the motion is approved 5-0. Thank you. The next item is going to be handled by Britt Wilson, Management Analyst, regarding the annexation of territory owned by Nguyen Record Holdings. Britt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the latest of a continuing and intermittent stream of properties annexing into the city's community facilities district that was established back in 1990. This property is owned by Wynn Record Holdings, and their application land entitlement process was preliminary development plan PDP 16001 that the council just approved earlier in this meeting. As with all projects, they were conditioned to annex into the Community Facilities District, and that is done through this process. It's a two-step process. This is the first step in that. That is implemented by them filing a petition for annexation. That asks the City Council to initiate these annexation proceedings and provides for an expedited approval of the annexation and the eventual levy of a special tax. This annexation will be known as annexation number 167. Approval of this resolution would allow for the petition to be approved by the City Council. You're accepting and preliminarily approving the annexation map that is attached, and you're establishing the date and time of the public hearing, which would be December 1st, and that is to basically count the ballots for annexation into the district. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brett. Does the council have any questions or comments? Does the public have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor. Move that the City Council adopt resolution number 2016, next in line, declaring the city's intention to annex territory to the Community Facilities District number 1 and to levy a special tax therein for additional police and fire services, preliminary approving a map of the area proposed to be annexed and scheduling a proposed hearing to consider the annexation and the levy of a special tax for annexation number 167. You want to know what that means, Mayor?
I think it means the city manager takes care of it.
That's right.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Please vote. And the motion is approved 5-0. At this time, I'm going to ask our Director of Public Works, Mark Sambito, who would like to make an announcement regarding the dog park. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Public Works has received a large number of comments, questions, and concerns regarding the status of the dog park. There are some folks who are under the impression that the dog park is open. Unfortunately, we are still continuing our construction. We've got asphalt, we've got live electrical wires, and we're still doing the planting and irrigation out there. So the park is not yet open. We are planning for an end of November grand opening and dedication ceremony. So we will make it available to our residents in the very near future. Unfortunately, it's just not available right now, and it's a bit of an unsafe environment. So we're asking that our residents continue to be patient with us and not visit the dog park quite yet. In addition, we're hoping very much that we establish all of the turf and planting within the dog park so that when the park is finally open, the plants will be able to sustain the regular sprinkling, shall we say, from our four-legged friends. If we don't get them really healthy and established prior to that happening, there's a very good possibility that we could lose a lot of our planting or grass. So part of the time that we're waiting is to make sure that we have a very well-established landscaping there so that it will be able to survive the regular use that our dogs will give it. So I appreciate the patience of everyone out there who's very excited as we are about using the new dog park, but just grant us a little bit of patience and we'll see you at the end of the month with a very exciting grand opening.
Thank you, Mark. It is going to be a wonderful, wonderful facility. We're all looking forward to it.
And one other comment on that, if anyone wants to know the specific date that it will be open, please go on the city's website and sign up for the email subscription. And as soon as we have a date that it will be open, we'll shoot that out to everybody, and you'll know as quickly before your dog does.
Excellent. I'll now ask our city attorney, Steve Quintanilla, to cover those items that will be in our closed session. Steve?
Mr. Mayor, before I describe the items on the closed session calendar, I need to request that we add an urgency closed session item that's related to the purchase of the Rancho Mirage Ritz-Carlton Spa Suites. It came to my attention yesterday that we just need some direction from the council with respect to a couple terms of the purchase and sale agreement before we're able to close that deal before the next council meeting. So I just need it requires a 4/5 vote.
Okay.
To add it.
You need a vote on adding that to the closed session? Yes. Okay, may we have a vote? I'll call for a vote on adding that to the closed session, please. Please vote. Okay, and it's approved and it's added to the closed session.
So the items that are going to be considered...
It was approved unanimously, I think, was it?
Yeah. I think 5-0 is unanimous, yes.
So with that added, here are the items for closed session today. And the first one's listed as, this is the urgency item, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 regarding the 4 spa suites located at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Rancho Mirage. The city's negotiators, City Manager Randall Binder, and the negotiating parties of the City of Rancho Mirage and New Age Rancho Mirage LLC. Under negotiations are the terms of the purchase and sale agreement. Council also confer with legal counsel regarding potential litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. That involves 2 potential cases. And the council will consult with the city attorney regarding the existing litigation known as Veronica Juarez versus City of Rancho Mirage, and that's pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1.
And we will now recess to closed session.